Okay. So hello to everyone that has joined up to now. This is You're on Mute. This is our final session of this week. It's been an online series of sessions that focus on digital engagement with older participants. The sessions have been hosted by FACT. We're a gallery in Liverpool. We're home to 3 art galleries, a cinema and a lab for learning and experimentation. If you want to find out more about what we do, how to get involved, head to our website, which is fact.co.uk, and there's more information about this event at fact.co.uk/you're on mute. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook using the handle @fact_Liverpool. I think they'll be posted in the chat as well. Our partners for this series are Younger Art, Happy Older People, National Museums Liverpool and Open Eye Gallery, and it's been supported by Arts Council England and the Bearing Foundation. My name's Kate Hughes. I'm the public programme producer at FACT, and I will audio describe myself. I'm a woman in my late 20s, got brown hair, and I'm sat in a magnolia room with a blue painting behind me. I'll introduce today's session, which will focus on what we can learn about digital engagement, working with people of different ages, and it'll be facilitated by Sarah Bailey. I'll just do some quick housekeeping as well. If you can stay on mute during the panel presentations and turn your cameras off, and then when we get into the Q&A, we'll stop the recording and people can turn the cameras on and interact with the panelists for the Q&A. But you can also ask questions in the chat at any time if you've got anything that comes up while the panelists are talking, and then we'll get to those later. We do have a live closed caption service for this meeting, so if you go to transcript CC at the bottom of your screen and then click show subtitles, they should come up. If you have any technical issues, you can access me or Gina from our comms team directly in the chat and we'll help you out. If you would like to, while Sarah introduces the panel, please put your name and your organisation or your role in your Zoom name, and you can do that by clicking the blue dots on the top right of your picture and then rename, and you can type in there. All of our panelists are going to audio describe themselves, but you can also find out more about them and their work at fact.co.uk/you're on mute. I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
Hi everyone, it's good to see you all virtually. I should say that we have about 4 times the people booked onto the session who are currently here, so there might be a bit of shuffling around as people come in. If people come in, so please bear with us if we need to, if at some point we get a larger influx of people, I might just slow the session down just to welcome people properly and update us on where we are, but let's just see how we go with that. So anyway, thanks for being with us, it's great to see you. So I'm Sarah Bailey. I am your facilitator for today. I am a white woman with dark shoulder length hair. I'm wearing a black top. I'm sitting in a white room. We've designed this session today to go through a couple of presentations. There's time for questions and answers, so input your questions and answers until that session. Don't wait, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll have a look at them. Then we're going to have a bit of time, then we're going to have a small break, then we will have some breakout sessions where we'll discuss some of the issues arising from the presentations and around digital engagement, which obviously the period that we have just lived through has made us think about digital engagement in much more kind of immediate ways than we might have considered before, because it's been so essential. So hence why we're having these discussions now. Then we're going to take some feedback from the breakouts and then we'll move to some final thoughts. So it's a couple of hours and I hope it's enjoyable for you. I'm just going to ask some of the other panelists to audio describe themselves, just so that we've got a clear image of who we all are. So Lucía, you next, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucía Arias. I work at FACT in the learning team, and I'm going to audio describe myself. I'm a white woman, shoulder brown hair, and I'm sitting in a very boring office right now.
Jack, do you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Tan, and I am an artist in Galloway in southwest Scotland. I am a Chinese man with short black hair, and I'm wearing glasses. And I'm in my studio, which means there's a lot to describe in my background, which is there's a painted screen, a colorful painted screen with patterns in the background, books, and 2 stuffed toys and lots of papers.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
And Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, afternoon everybody. My name's Emma, my pronouns are she, her, and my audio description, I'm a white 40-year-old with long dark hair. I have a brown cardigan and a white t-shirt on with some red earrings, and I'm in a white room with some posters, like a floral poster behind me, and a big planner. That's me.
Okay, thanks very much, Emma. Now, I am going to have, just before we do a little bit more of a detailed introduction, you know the bit normally when you're doing this kind of session where you're in the room and you're like noticing what other people are drinking and you're like all the bits that happen that you don't know you're doing. We can't do that now, but we're just going to have a little warm up just to kind of connect with each other a little bit in the space. So that involves switching your camera on and off. However, if you're not comfortable with switching your camera on, if you could just raise your hand instead of switching your camera on, that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, and in response to the questions, you will either switch on your camera or raise your hand. So I hope it's not too taxing. So the first question is, have you got please leave your camera on if you have a cup of coffee in front of you, or raise your hand. Oh, very good. Little collection of coffee drinkers. Good afternoon, coffee drinkers. It's nice to see you. Okay, switch your cameras off. Very nice. And please switch your camera on or raise your hand if you are drinking something else whilst you're with us this afternoon. Very nice glass of water. Hello, Stuart. Beautiful background. Oh, it looks very exciting. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so please switch your camera off. Please switch your camera on if you've worked online in the creation of an artistic work during lockdown. Or raise your hand. Camera on or raise your hand. Great. Nice to see you all. Thanks very much. Okay, camera off. Please, can you switch your cameras on if you have worked with teenagers in the last 18 months? Very nice, thank you. Cameras off. Cameras on if you've worked with what we might understand as older people in the last 18 months. Quite a few of us, some of the same people, some different. So last question, and then we're going to move into the presentations. Please put your camera on if you've had a moment when you've been trying to work in a collaborative way with people in the last 18 months online and gone, I really don't know how to do this. How am I going to do this? Yeah, most of us, very good. Yeah, very good. Okay, good. I'm glad. We've just established, let's like find our level, that we've all been going, how do we do this? Great, thank you. Not to discount anyone's expertise in the space, but it's been a kind of a time when we've been exploring new practices, and that probably leads me to the kind of basis of this session, in that what we don't want to do is kind of feel like we're funneling ourselves into finding the answer to how we do digital engagement. We really want to kind of explore what it is that we're learning and what we have left to learn. That's really important. So I hope we can be together in that spirit today. If anybody has any questions that they want to ask, or if there's any jargon that's used that anyone doesn't understand, let's just deal with it straight away. Just put a question in the chat just to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So thanks for joining in with me, everybody. Just a little kind of wake up before we get to thinking and talking today. So I would like now to move into the panel section. So I'm just going to introduce each of our panelists first, and then we're going to move into their presentations. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the panelists, and then they're going to do a couple of minutes each just to expand on their starting point for this work. So I'd like to start by introducing Emma. So Emma Case is a photographer and a producer at OpenEye Gallery who's particularly interested in socially engaged practice. So Emma, do you want to say tell us a little bit more about your work?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm a photographic artist. I'm currently social practice producer at OpenEye, so I manage sort of around 16 socially engaged programs across our network, and I'm also an artist in residence with OpenEye for the past 2 years. I also have a personal project called the Red Archive, which is an archive project working with Liverpool football fans, sort of collecting and sharing their stories. I also do sign language as well, and so I'm very interested in working with the deaf community. But I think that's me.
Great, thank you very much, Emma, and thanks for being with us today. And now just to briefly introduce Jack. So Jack is an artist who works in a place where the social, the legal and the artistic connect. He creates performances, video, participatory projects that help us explore human behaviour and the social structures that we live in. So Jack, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you just as a starter, please?
Yes, hi everyone. Basically, I trained as a potter, and I also have a background in law. So I decided to put the two together and decided that law was my clay, and that I approach rules, laws, and policies as if it was paint or a material or a sculptural material. And so therefore I end up making work that plays around with organizational structures or policy or rules. And then that ends up being performance or installation.
Great, thank you very much, Jack. Law is my clay might be the best quote we've got from today already. I'm not sure we can get better than that, Emma, just so we're all aware of that. Thank you. So we're going to move into the case studies now. So I'm going to switch my video off for this just so we can concentrate on our presenters. I'll leave it up to you whether you switch yours off or not. Start us off. Emma, would you like to tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing with people at OpenEye over the last few months, please?
Yeah, no problem. I'll share my screen. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Emma Case, and I'm kind of talking today as the artist in residence at OpenEye Gallery rather than sort of my producer role just for this project. So this is a project that I've been working on for 2 years now. It's with a photography group, an intergenerational photography group called Clickmore, who are based at a community hub called My Clubmore, which is in North Liverpool in Clubmore Ward. We started together, like I said, 2 years ago, obviously in person. And so we were meeting weekly at the hub. And the first sort of 8 months was very much about getting to know each other and exploring photography, talking about photography, experimenting, sort of facilitating the group to look at light and composition and really just sort of bedding in, I guess. We began to produce quite a bit of work, and so I'm just going to click through. We gave the group some disposable cameras, asked them to sort of share a bit of their own lives with us, and they produced this sort of body of work. Just these are some of the examples. And we then sort of moved towards their first exhibition, which was called Exposed. So it was very much about exposing them as people, exposing their stories, exposing themselves to other people, and sort of how we get to know each other kind of in communities and in society. These were sort of personal portraits, and then we created our first exhibition that was shown at My Clubmore. I think it was the end of 2019. We then were going to continue in the same format, meeting weekly, and I think this was at the end of 2019, and then obviously in March 2020, COVID arrived. Now, most of the group, I would say, didn't really have sort of access to an online facility. They hadn't done anything like Zoom or before. And so for those first, say, month or two, it was a bit of a scraping around of how we're going to continue this. We knew we wanted to continue the group, but we just needed to find a format that worked for everybody. So we started off with a Facebook group, just so that we were connected, and we were able to chat. And actually this kind of created more engagement. We were talking nearly every day, sharing photos within the Facebook group, supporting each other. I think maybe 90% of the group were living alone. I think the same amount were shielding. And so they were very much literally just them on their own in their house, particularly for those sort of first few months when it was, you know, really strict lockdown. But the Facebook group worked really well to keep us connected. And then we moved into Zoom. We did lose 2 of the participants with Zoom, just one didn't want to join Zoom, and the other one didn't have the facility. But they were still, one of them was still able to continue on Facebook, but then another participant wasn't on Facebook. And so we managed to kind of get there eventually, and weekly we were meeting on Zoom. And this was a really incredible space for us. We were going through something kind of none of us had been through before. We were finding that there was a lot of support, you know, week in, week out. We were meeting, we were explaining how we were feeling, we were taking photographs, and the group at the beginning were really, really hungry to create stuff. And so we were giving them activities every week. Obviously they couldn't go too far, and so before, when we were in person, it was very much about going out into the city, going out to take photos, and all of a sudden that was kind of restricted. And so in a way it kind of meant that the challenge was very different for them, but they were really up for the challenge, and I think they would admit as well, kind of their best work was happening with this restriction. And so every week we would set them a task. They would go away and then send us their homework via email or in the Facebook group, and then we would share the following week. And what was nice is that in person, we used to have this thing where we are such a chatty group that we had to have a packet of ginger nuts, and whoever was holding the ginger nuts was the person that could speak. But with Zoom, we didn't really need the ginger nuts because of the way Zoom is set up. Everybody sort of was able to present their work while everybody else listened. And so it took on a very different dynamic, I think. We then sort of started really focusing on everybody's personal experience of lockdown specifically, and they started to create work around that topic. And it was just incredible to watch them able to articulate how they're feeling through photography in this really sort of restrictive life that we were all living. And in a way, it was really therapeutic for all of us, including me and my colleague Kat. We were able to really talk through how we were feeling each week. And, you know, we all know lockdown sort of emotionally was a bit of a roller coaster. And so to be able to sort of open up and, you know that we've got those 2 hours a week where we can really be honest. And if we're struggling, then we can talk about it. Or if we're feeling good, we can talk about it. It really was a lifeline, I think, for all of us. But they'd created so much work. I was a little bit worried that we still had quite a way to go until our final exhibition. And then I think around the summer, we were told that the final exhibition was going to be put back another 8 months just because of programming within the gallery. And so I was really keen to create something, you know, show the work somehow, because all of this work was being produced, but it was very much internally between us all. And so we decided to make a lockdown zine. And so what was nice is that online through our Zoom group, we could curate it together. And so every decision in the book is the group's. We discussed, you know, papers and size and design and what images and what text was going to go into the zine. We did have 2 different versions because we couldn't decide on one front cover. But the zine was something really sort of exciting for the group. It was something that they really got their teeth into. And this is just a couple of the pages from the zine. It's not even a zine, it's a book. They created so much. It's definitely a book. And so this zine got produced, it got printed. We've got some in the gallery. We sent some out to, you know, our partners and to people within the local community of Clubmore, but it still felt like we weren't getting it any further. There wasn't that sort of engagement with a bigger audience. And so we did a bit of a brainstorm and decided to do an online launch, because ordinarily we would have done an in-person launch in the hub. And that's when we decided to do our sort of postal packs. We were very keen, although the launch was going to be digital and online, we really wanted this sort of tangible physical aspect to still happen. And so we created an event. People had to sign up for the event, and when they signed up, they gave us their address and we sent them this postal pack. And in the pack, there's the zine, obviously. There's like a formal invite to the launch, and then they had a couple of little treats, lockdown treats, posh tea bags, some biscuits, some flower seeds. And then we wanted to try and create this sort of, I always call it like a tree. It's like you have your initial engagement, and then you wanted to create more branches of this engagement. And so we put some postcards in there with just the question, what are you grateful for, with a self-addressed envelope. But we told them not to do anything with the postcards until the session. And then our session, I've got a little clip. I hope the volume works on this. Hi. Hello. Hi everybody. So all the text, hold it up. If you can show your face a little bit as well.
Do you want us to say cheese? Mine's back to front. Mine's back to front.
Don't worry if it's back to front, because I can turn around in my Sorry, hold it there. 1, 2. Okay, hang on. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. It was a very lively session. They wanted music coming in, they wanted music going out, and I think a lot of the comments afterwards really sort of, they said it was a really nice space to spend the afternoon in. And I think that was one of the main aims of the group, is to sort of show the outside world the energy and the personality of our group that we've benefited from over the past year online, to sort of share that with the world. And it was lovely to get the postcards back in the post, a really sort of eclectic, warm, I guess, response. And these will be shown in the final exhibition, which is going to happen in the autumn. And then our extra digital platform, we've just started our online Instagram page. So if you want to give us a follow, we would love that. It's Click More Photos. And yeah, that's our Click More journey. I'll stop sharing.
Great, thanks very much, Emma. It's really great to get a bit of an insight into the project. I'm sure we'll have loads of questions for you in the Q&A. Thanks for sharing. The volume was great. Very much enjoyed a little burst of music. Thank you. Okay, so Jack, are you ready for us?
Hello, everyone. I'm going to present to you a project that I did with the FACT learning team called Nonhumans of Liverpool, and it is a online policy-making game where you play as a non-human to identify human and non-human conflicts in the city or with your organization, and then propose policy or planning changes. So we do this via a game. I'm going to present for 10 minutes, and then Lucía will take over for 5 minutes to also talk about the wider impact of the game within FACT as an institution. So I'm going to actually just show you the game itself, and I'm going to play you for very short videos. They're like a minute or a minute and a half long, because we created these video tutorials that where the participants actually made the tutorials, or they spoke in the tutorial. So it's really nice to hear directly from the participants' voices. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I will just run through very quickly the game with you. So if you go to, this will be launched on the FACT website this coming month. But when you get to the website, if you scroll down to Nonhumans of Liverpool game, you can play the game. Here we go. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you get to this screen normally, and then you play start, and you get to a game page where you can add your username, and then you can pick one of 6 different, what we call folk. So if you click one of these, you will begin a conversation with the fox, who will explain his folk to you. And basically you play within a kind of tribe or a team. And so this is the mammals team. And so you go through a choose your own adventure discussion with the fox, who will try and persuade you to join his or her team. And you'll do that with each of these folk as well. There's the bird team. I think the bird champion is a pigeon who will try and talk to you, I think. And the butterfly will talk to you as well. Then when you decide which team you want, you go into it, and then you're given a map of Liverpool. Here it says the tournament's ended already, but usually you play within a timed tournament. Could be a month or a few days even. And when you get to this game, you can scroll in to see different markers that people might have left. And what you do is that you click on anywhere and you submit a marker to give witness to an incident that you might have seen of an injustice to a non-human that you might have seen in the city. So you type your marker in. You select what kind of thing that you've witnessed. Was it a crime against an animal? Was it food injustice? Was it a spatial issue? Was it pollution? And you click, and then the marker takes you through about 4 or 5 forms where if you fill in the information, you get points. And the best markers get forwarded to a big town hall tournament at the end. So I would like now to actually play some of the explanations from our participants to you. So here we go. This is Dot, who's going to explain how to write a good marker.
Hi everyone, I hear you're going to play the game, and I've been played it a couple of times, so I'm going to give you some tips. So first, I had a good look at the questions that were on the markers. So I found if you sort of went through as you went along, you kept repeating yourself. So it was a good idea to know what the questions are before you do the marker. Yeah, I try to do one a day. I try to do one a day. I look for ideas sort of everywhere, you know, the things that I'm interested in, my hobbies, the news, things that were in the news that I might be able to use. I think you need to really put a good story. I found as you went along, you need to really make it like a vivid story, a really interesting, vivid story, but not too long, but so that people are really interested in reading it and think, oh yes, yeah, what happens here. So one thing I didn't do, but I would definitely do in future, is to leave evidence, because I think that gets you quite a high mark if you leave some sort of evidence, whatever it is, a photograph or anything. The other thing that the tip that I found quite useful was looking at other people's markers, and particularly the ones that got high marks, to see how they had written their marker, and I found that quite useful actually. Steal from others. Goodbye. Thank you for playing the game.
Okay, and that was Dot. This is Anna, who's going to talk to us about what it's like to be on a jury and what it's like to be a tulip.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the game. I hope you enjoy playing it. I'm one of the plant folk, so I take on either being a tree or a nettle or a cabbage, and play as one of those plant folk, and hopefully put over all the concerns that plant folk have living in a human world, and try and rectify some of the inequalities which we think are in our plant world. And I think that what I was doing was responding to what I could see as antagonisms from humans to my plant folk character. Your aim is as...
I'm going to stop there. And this is Tia, a teenager, who will tell us actually not only how a tournament works, but she explains quite eloquently the problems of using Zoom and how to perform on Zoom.
Hello, I'm Tia, and I was involved with the game. I want to thank you guys for playing it because it took a lot of hard work and the people who worked on it were very committed. At the end of the tournament, some of you will have to represent the best markers to a panel of judges. The judges will give final points to the folk and the winner will be crowned. This panel of judges will make sure that the voices of your folk are represented in the environmental policy. I would say acting on Zoom is quite hard because no one can see your body language, so it all has to be in the face. You've got to kind of project everything that you're thinking in your head projected through your face, because it kind of makes the judges see what you're doing in a different way. I feel like this doesn't make sense. I feel like none of it makes sense, but
Makes sense.
if you want to do makeup like I've done, grab some face paint, make yourself look like one of your folk, or you can on Zoom you can have a background, so you can do that for your Zoom, or you can literally just create a background with things that you have in your house. Bye! Hope the best non-human wins.
And finally, we have Evan, just very shortly. Evan, this is the actual tournament, the actual town hall tournament, and Evan here is representing hedgehogs, the hedgehog species, and arguing his case before the judges on top here. So we have 3 judges here on top.
I hear stories from badgers and pheasants that roads are the most dangerous thing out there. So many lives are lost each year. My name is Hetty and I'm a hedgehog. We live by Fortin. I say we, but there is only me left now, as all my friends are relatives are flat, prickly messes on the roads. I cannot bear to talk about it. I tried to cross the road to visit another clan of hedgehogs. And what happens? I am blinded by bright lights and have to run with my little legs so fast. Less foods on the road, less damage and accidents to cars. No children screaming when they see a disarmed hedgehog. Dismembered hedgehog lying on the road. Win-win as far as I can see. I feel worried and tired. My little legs are tired and feel in edge.
Okay, just gonna stop sharing. Yeah, the town hall goes on for half an hour, but I think for me, what was the most amazing thing was 11-year-old basically talking in terms of planning policy. I mean, he's there basically 11-year-old thinking through the consequences of road policy and traffic policy. So yeah, over to you, Lucía.
Thank you, Jack. It's been so great to listen to them again. They explain all these things that we are discussing here much better than I do. Tia's definition of how you feel in Zoom is so how I feel about it every day. So I'm going to try and be quite quickly. I'm going to share my screen here. Well, hope you're seeing my screen. Yeah. So quickly, for us, this project was our third intergenerational commission after 2.5 years of trying to do this work around intergeneration and how to bring these two groups of generations together. And the work with Jack happened in a very specific time, and so we had to rethink a lot what we do and what we mean by this work. So I'm going to share my notes with you. They say better what I'm trying to explain, and I think that they start like some of the conversations that we will discuss later. We started talking to Jack a 1.5 years previously to the project, because we had to start this project later on because of the situation with Corona, obviously. And by the time that we started the project, we had to change all the plans because we have to move from offline to online. No, that was our current situation now. And so I'm going to try and summarize our learnings from this. The first thing is the times and the needs for the participants. For us, this is a little bit different from Emma's projects that I think Emma's going to recap briefly for those that haven't been able to join the session at the beginning. Our group is not a pre-existing community, it's a group of individuals that got together to sort of design a tool with Jack and participate in a project to produce this game. And for us, the main thing is how do we engage this group of people in this sort of digital production, no? Because they are not a community, they're something different. Then the objective of the work itself was really challenging, as the game was a learning tool, and at the same time we were doing an artistic project. So for us, when we think about the project, it's this engagement divides into parts. The part of the participants working with Jack, and I'm going to mention Conway McDermott, because they were a designer and developer, and also Darius, who was the designer, who were like key for the project. That was the designing with the participants, but then this game was supposed to be tested as a tool to learn to think about non-humans. And so after the work with the participants, we moved this over to where do we test this? How does this game and this idea turn into something? And so that's when we moved the project and the program into FACT itself. And we decided, well, Jack had the opportunity to work with our head of operations on using the game as the tool to rethink our environmental policy at FACT. And for us, that's engagement also, and that's a group of participants, basically our team, that got together, in this case in Gathertown, and they all had to play the games that our group of participants designed for them, play as one of the different roles in the game, and decide how that should impact the environmental policy at FACT. And those two parts of engagement are really important for us. And here in my notes, that I'm happy to share there, are the things that we sort of are thinking about on organizational learning, what it meant for us. So we think a lot about what we do as a collective and as a community, and that is not only the participants, that is the artist or any collaborator, and ourselves as the learning team. No, for a project, we all become this side of like a kind of an artistic collective, and I think that Jack gave us that opportunity to really think about ourselves as a collective. And we kind of define it like that, no? What's our mutual responsibility to produce the best artwork, but at the same time providing the best learning experience to the participants. And this way of thinking had allowed us to think at these different levels that you can see here. So the working principles, safeguarding, there's a whole conversation that we can have about online safeguarding and how we turn into lockdown mindset. So we were very, very overcautious. I think that Neil, who is also in the learning team, always says that we turn into this, like we were afraid of using any kind of online platform because of safeguarding reasons. Then the learning as an object, which I think is more Jack's kind of field. But yeah, what is the care that we need to put in place when you involve so many people? And also, how do you tell that story without turning it to a documentary or a documentation or a making of? Then institutionally, there's a lot of learning. The advocate space, no? How do you create an advocate for this type of work that is engagement, participatory in the organization and within the organization? And then something super interesting for us is that since every project that we produced, including Jack, is represented in our artistic program, how actually we discuss that with the rest of the members of the team and how we also learn from them, no? How do we learn, for example, with our exhibitions team about being curatorial, or is it necessary to think curatorially in the learning projects? I think I'm gonna leave it there and stop sharing. And yeah, I'm hopefully there'll be a good debate after this.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Thanks, Lucía. It's really helpful to get an overview. We're going to come back to you a bit more on organisational learning and the questions shortly, Lucía, and just because I think there'll be some from OpenEye too. Now, just to kind of put it out there, we've had a few people join us in the room because we had a technical difficulty with the Zoom link. So if I would ask everyone to just bear with us a little for a few minutes. I'd really like to ask Emma from OpenEye to just do a 2-minute recap on the work, just for the people who've joined the call because they missed your presentation. So there's a few people here who didn't see any of that. So if you could just give us a little 2-minute overview, that would be really helpful, please. Yep. Sorry about this, everybody.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I have been working with a older group called Clickmore for the past 2 years. The first year I was working in person with them, but obviously we had to move on to an online space, and so we were meeting regularly on Zoom, and that has created a lockdown zine which we curated together online, and we obviously got it printed physically, but then we had an online launch for the zine via Zoom, which had a lot of energy, a lot of music. It was a wonderful session, but we also asked the group if they could sort of fill out postcards and send them back to us, because we gave, this is my rubbish 2-minute summing up, we gave them a pack. It's so hard without the images. We gave them a pack, so everybody that came to the session was sent a pack beforehand with a copy of the zine. And so yeah, just about being digital online with the group. It's actually, some of it has been better, some of it has not been so great, but what has been important is for us to stay connected over the past year, particularly because most of them lived alone, were isolated and shielding. And so yeah, I think that's a summary. I think.
Sorry, Emma, that was a great summary.
That's okay.
I would just chip in that as you were speaking, I noticed that your project blended, so having been in the real world, there was also then a blend of Facebook, Zoom, the use of disposable cameras, post, Instagram. You've kind of blended lots of different ways of connecting with each other, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into the Q&A. Thanks, Emma, again, and thanks everyone for bearing with us. We're going to move into the Q&A now. So if you've got questions for our panelists, please do put them in the chat and I'll work through them as best I can. We've got about 20 minutes for this. So, and I've got a couple of questions that I would like to include just to prime us for the breakout. But do fire your questions into the chat, would be really helpful. So the first question, it kind of picks up on where Lucía left off for us actually. I'm going to come to you with that, Emma, first, if that's okay, just because you're kind of wearing multiple hats in this conversation. So the first question I want us to consider is, what do you think the organisational learning has been for OpenEye as a gallery? What is it that they've learned from working in this way with you?
Yeah, I feel there's been a couple of projects I think that were happening anyway, and where obviously lockdown happened and the possibility of sort of not happening anymore, you know, and pausing it, you know, that that was something that we really didn't want to do. And so I think the biggest learning for us was maybe just ensuring flexibility and listening and being even more responsive. I think we've always been pretty good at being responsive, but there was never a one size fits all. And so I think with the handful of groups that we've managed to continue with, it was very much about listening to what they have access to, or what they are comfortable with, or what they want to do in terms of continuing, and then working around them, which included maybe doing a Zoom session, but also doing a one-to-one or a phone call or an email. Or so it's like, you know, you might have a group of 10 participants, but they all needed different, they all had different needs. And so I think, we've even had a prison project that has completely we couldn't do digital, and we've done postal engagement. And so it's literally looking at what is that best fit for that particular project, but also the individuals within that project. And so I think moving forward, we will definitely keep the digital aspect. And again, it's just giving groups and individuals more choice in the access that they find the easiest, or what they prefer, I think.
Thanks, Emma, that's really helpful. It gives us an insight into where we're going next as we kind of come to the end of the lockdown period, we hope. So I'm going to move on now to Lucía. Jack, which of you would like to speak first on this? Jack, do you want to kick us off, and then we'll go back to Lucía, because we've heard a bit from Lucía on organisational learning, and it might be that as the artist you might have picked up on slightly different things.
On organisational learning, well, I mean, in a way for me it was learning that well, you know, a game app is not a small thing to do, and it's, you know, it's entire companies make game apps, and I really, it's almost like the kind of like my mouth is too big for my stomach, really. So I was like trying to take on far too much, and you just realize that I can't do it on my own. I'm not a coder, and I'm not, you know, I can't project manage the whole thing, this massive task. So it was very much about saying to the organization, we've got to do this together. We've got to, it's got to be collaborative, and it's a kind of co-produced object, really. And so that also means that the organization has to be an artist, and the organization has to be a participant, and the organization has to be a co-producer. I mean, they're used to being co-produced, but it's all these other capacities, I think, co-designer, co-producer, that the organization isn't necessarily used to doing.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Jack. Lucía, Jack's kind of pointed to the idea of, I think anyone working in any kind of institution, there's always a bit of hat shifting. You kind of have to think about the different roles that you undertake. But it sounds like this period has particularly encouraged you to think about how you shift into different roles. Is that right? Would you reflect that too?
I don't know. I mean, there's more people in the team there, so I'm happy for them to jump in whenever they feel like they need to, because this was a very collaborative practice. I wouldn't say it's roles, but from my perspective, it was more talking about identity. It was more who we are as the learning team in this case, the engagement team of FACT, and the institution, and who we are in this project. It turned into a little bit of a shift in our perspective of our own identity, because of what Emma described. No, you need to make more personal decisions, and you need to be there to support in a situation that was absolutely overwhelming for everyone. But then also that has a very, in my opinion, interesting consequence in the institution, because the organization has to really rethink what is it that they are doing with other people and with participants. And I think that the team really had lots of discussions and reflections around working with Jack, the participants and the rest of the members of the team in such a collective way, in bringing so much of ourselves and our beliefs in the way we do these projects.
Thanks very much, Lucía. I did it for the first time. It's the name of the webinar series, and I left my mute. That person. Thank you both. Thanks all three of you.